Sorry. I'll start the recording proper, but I just realized I looked at the chat and it was from when Mike and I were recording last. And the last message was, "Gotta poop, hurry up and close the show." Hello and welcome back to more of our prototype E3, non-E3, Jeff Fest, Summer Game Jeff, whatever you want to call it, coverage. This is the official first day, I guess, even though it's technically day 3 or 4 for us, of Summer Game Fest. This is the showcase-centric show where we're going to be discussing the couple of shows. I guess it's technically one stream, but Summer Game Fest proper, live, whatever you want to call it. Followed by Day of the Devs and Devolver Digital's showcase. Back here on ThisWeekInGeek.net with Ken Reels. How you doing, buddy?
All right.
Yeah, I mean, if we sound kind of tired, we're trying to prop ourselves up and everything because, I mean, I ended up doing some video editing last night of getting clips together and fell asleep in the middle of it, woke up, posted it, it'll be up, and that link's going to be in the show description as well, so you can catch up and not necessarily have to watch a 4-hour stream to get about 20 minutes worth of probably good information. I might have missed 1 or 2 trailers, now that I think about it, of things that I was like, oh, that might be good to be included, so we might end up mentioning them. If I see them in our list of things that I'm like, oh, I forgot to put that in, I'll mention it. But yeah, this is, we're in full swing now. We're probably, even though it's not halfway through when it comes to the amount of showcases, because there's so many today, we're pretty much right in the middle, halfway through all of the showcases overall, right?
Yeah, just about.
Unless we find out something like Nintendo and some other companies end up doing something later, which we still haven't heard from. We do know, I don't know what they're going to be showing it at. I'm going to assume maybe like, is EA doing an EA at IGN thing? Because
yeah,
Tuesday...
EA's working with IGN, and IGN is doing stuff all this weekend.
Okay, yeah, they don't have like a specific showcase except to say that apparently there's a specific time on Tuesday where they're going to be showing the new Dragon Age game, which is weird to me that it's not. I'm going to assume that the teaser trailer for that is going to be at Xbox. Because, you know, Sony's not doing anything right now, and normally I would say that it wouldn't be because Microsoft's, you know, pretty keen on trying to showcase Avowed and that, but it is going to be a different style of game. It's not going to be like they're showing a game that looks like Avowed. So I would assume they're going to have a tease there, and then it's going to say tune into, you know, to
IGN's thing.
IGN at E3 or whatever they used to call it. I don't know what they're calling it now. Or is it IGN Plays?
Live.
IGN Live, whatever. They'll have something there because EA, if they're not doing their own little showcase, it means that Xbox is going to show all the sports games because they got a football game. They have 2 football games this year, I think.
Yes.
I only know this because I remember seeing some people being like, they're obviously just going to be copying the engine, but people were like, oh my God, it's the first time that I think college ball is back in like over 10 years or something.
Yeah, because of NCAA bullshit.
Yeah, like, and so even it's going to be reusing a lot of assets, obviously. You know, surprise. People are going to be very complaining. There's going to be some of your favorite and not so favorite streamers that are going to be going nuts about it in both directions. You're going to have the shills that love it, and then you're going to have people that are like, it's great, it's back, but god damn it, come on. So they're going to be showing that, like, they'll show that off, they'll show off NHL, they'll show off whatever soccer. They're going to probably have like a Xbox
EA block.
EA Sports block on Xbox. I can almost guarantee they're going to have something there, because where else would they put it unless last minute IGN is like, hey, we got a half-hour block we're showing, but they're not saying that. The only thing that they've announced is that they're going to be showing Dragon Age with extended gameplay there, so I'm assuming that is EA's holiday game. That would mean that they don't have a new Battlefield or anything, any other
No, the
major title.
new Battlefield just started development.
Yeah, that's going to be a next year title. Like you might think it would take many years. They're going to take the guts of what they had for this multiplayer game that didn't do well, but that has slowly been iterated on, and they're going to use that as their engine. So their engine is done. It's just a matter of making the scenarios. So it'll probably be next year, and they'll want to do that because isn't Call of Duty? I think isn't their plan to not do yearly completely new titles? They're going to do like this TikTok thing that they've been doing, where it's like new game, then expansion game, or sorry, Modern Warfare 3, which wasn't an expansion but was an expansion game sort of thing, especially with it all going to Game Pass. So that's meta talk and figuring it out, but still that's pretty much the only other news that's happened between the last time we recorded and now. But we had the Summer Game Fest main show. So this was I have a few notes for a page or two of just I made little notes for pretty much every game that popped up until about maybe the halfway point when I had company over, and then we started laughing and not paying attention because it wasn't super captivating for a lot of it. But I did note initially, like before the show even started, I said, "Hey, no pre-show." I made a note of that. He's never done one where there wasn't a pre-show. No pre-show, not multiple hosts. They only had one. I can't remember her name, unfortunately. Was she a streamer or something? That was the.
I think so. She essentially was the co-host.
Yeah, like I would say non-professional, like probably does this stuff for a living as far as online, but again, without looking her up, I'm not going to disparage her. Like she seemed more charming and had more fun.
She did better than half of OTK.
Yes, definitely, and seemed to be genuinely happy to be there. This wasn't a case of traditional television personality talking heads that are professionally trained, and that almost gave it a more fun vibe than what we're used to seeing. It's nice to see like a really professionally put on show, which is he timed it really well this year. But also wait a minute, holy shit, hold the phone. I just realized something. There were no disruptions. This is like the first time in like 2 Summer Game Fests and 2 Game Awards at least, where there was
But I also noticed. Did you notice how far the crowd was back?
Yes.
Like the audience was back from the stage, and then there was a whole bunch of like cameras and shit in the front.
Yes, I did, but I also didn't notice a heavy security presence. But like the fact that I didn't notice anything go wrong is a good sign. But yeah, so no pre-show, and then he started off with the usual speak of like, hey, layoffs are bad, industry's still good.
At least he addressed it,
and he eventually did something with it that I didn't think he was going to do, and he did a much larger focus on indie games this year. Now, part of that is going to be because he probably couldn't get some of the larger ones because a lot of them are either tied up or maybe couldn't be announced because their respective systems haven't been announced yet. Looking at you, any pro upgrade for PlayStations and Nintendo, I got the feeling that there were a few titles that he could have gotten for this, not necessarily from first party, but from third parties that they had to hold off because they're either exclusive or heavily implied to be exclusive launch titles for these respective systems, whether that be enhanced versions of certain games for the PlayStation.
Pro,
I would imagine like something like we did get, and we'll get into it later, but like Alan Wake 2 is getting the physical release.
Yep.
And with a deluxe edition, that's something that I just get the feeling that it's coming out in line with the PS5 Pro coming out, that they would have just announced at the show and said, hey, and shown and said, hey, look, we've got some enhancements for PC and the new PlayStation. And it would have shown it, being 4K, it would have been 4K, maybe 60 with all the visual effects on or something. I don't know. They could have done that, and there would have been some Nintendo. There was very little Nintendo stuff here, except for things that were like, it's coming to these systems and Nintendo, but no emphasis on anything really, not even from third parties on it. But yeah, with that out of the way, And it was nice that he did address it with the whole layoff thing, and then made a point to show off indies, and then Day of the Devs being after the show having a heavy focus. A lot of the talking points that Jeff had here were teams of like less than 4 people made these games that he showed off. And
Yeah.
I know that there's talk online about the exorbitant pricing of the ad space or putting a trailer in. It's not as crazy as you'd think if you know how industry works. The only thing that I
Do you
noticed
know
is,
how much a GDC badge is?
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, unless you're comped by a large business, or like in a lot of cases, you can sometimes win essentially a press lottery, where you can, if you're a smaller outlet that maybe couldn't afford to get in, you can put your name into a press pool, and you can be randomly selected to get a badge for either a reduced rate, or sometimes they'll be like, hey, to help with small media, they'll give away like 50 press badges for free. Like, places will do that, but that's how, and that's not just gaming. That's how generally trade industry events go, unless it's unless it's like a single company corporate sponsored event. Like, hey, I'm a a tool fastening company, blah blah blah, and we're the main sponsor for this, and we're gonna have every single tradesperson and media person come out for free because we're trying to advertise. Like, unless they do that, that's what it is. But yeah, so there were a lot of games shown here that were either made by one person, 2 people, or teams of less than 5 or 6, which is actually pretty cool. First game was the probably not least best kept secret,
heavily
but,
rumored.
yeah, heavily rumored, but also people were unsure if it was going to be actually a Sony first-party title. People thought this was going to be a Traveler's Tales game or a TT game published by Warner Brothers, and it was not. This is the Sony's Lego Horizon Adventures, which is a Lego game. I don't know. They showed a studio off. It's not TT or Warner Brothers, but
It's
I don't know. Is
someone
it people that
completely
maybe
different.
left Warner or were laid off? I'm not sure. We'll have to look into it. But it had a weird name, and that's a studio that looked like it was handling the main stuff, but it's officially being published under the Guerrilla banner for Sony Studios, and it is also the big surprise that you're going to see is it's also coming to Switch day one. So it wouldn't have been as big a surprise if it was just a regular Lego game, obviously going to multiplat, or if it was a third-party developed game using the Horizon license. You could be like, okay, maybe it can go to Switch or other platforms. But the fact that it's a Sony first-party title, outside of MLB, where they were forced to do it by the license holder, they've never put Sony, or they haven't put Sony games on other consoles since they made the PlayStation. And it was noticeable too that it's not on Xbox. It's on PC, PS5, and Nintendo day one. It's going to struggle on Nintendo from the visuals on this.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking up the Studio Gobo, and they are basically a support team mostly. Like, they supported Hogwarts Legacy.
So that means that they're a Warner Brothers support team. Probably made up of people from TT.
Possible.
So, but it looks like that means that Guerrilla themselves, this is the next Guerrilla Games game. And then they probably had people that had worked on the support. It's probably the people that did some of the ports. Like, they would make the Lego games for, usually you target one console and you port out to the others. It's probably one of the teams that worked with TT on the other ports.
Yeah.
Very briefly, because we'll probably talk about this one. I have a feeling this is one that Birdman's going to like, right? Things I noticed with it. One, the walking animations is more like how you figure a Lego would walk. It's not just another Lego game.
Yeah.
It's much more presented as if it was a movie, as if it was one of the Lego movies, both in voice acting, production, camera work, camera angles, um, effects on screen. It is clearly a completely next gen engine that has not been used on any Lego game before.
Yeah.
So yay, good there. Um, without even looking it up, the next game, whatever it was, my singular note was "Scary game, don't care." And
It's an early access game. It's coming out in early access on Halloween. Early access immediately put it out of my mind.
And if we don't mention it, it's because either they didn't show enough of it, it looked too derivative, didn't look like it was going to catch us, or in many cases, a lot of stuff that Jeff showed here was stuff that was already announced, so we're not really going to be focusing on that unless there was some major difference in it. Harry Potter Quidditch. I put Harry Potter Quidditch looks bad and underlined bad, and then I found out it's only $29.
It's a $29 live service.
Yeah, $29 live service game that's going to be part of PlayStation Plus in September. For those fans that want it, great. For those that like PS1 style graphics blown up to large scale with what looks to be a very janky game.
Honestly, if you want to play a good Quidditch game, play the original Quidditch game.
Which was on, like, what, PS1?
PS1 and PC.
Exactly. I mean, and I remember that people liking that one, like, a lot.
That game is freaking good.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't play it, but I remember people liking it, and I also remember it was like perpetually rented at the video store. Like it was over top of the regular Harry Potter games. It was like, oh, it was that game, and then what was it? Was it Azkaban? Whatever was the first one on PS3. It was like right near the launch of the PS3 too. I
think it was Azkaban.
It was either Azkaban or Goblet, like whatever that was. That came out. I remember my friend was the first guy I knew that had a PlayStation 3, and it was that game, and eventually Metal Gear MGS4. When that game came out, we watched the intro at his place. He's like, "Oh, there's not many games out yet for the system." He rented it. We popped it on his brand spanking new 1080i TV that was like $600 for a 32-inch. And he had to like spend an extra $100 on HDMI cable because there was no such thing as cheap HDMI cables that first year. And we popped it in and we watched the intro video, and then we're like, oh man, the game froze. And then he goes, oh my God, the game didn't freeze. It was the first time we'd ever seen a game where the in-game graphics looked the same as the CGI. So he was able to move around. So I remember that was impressive. I don't remember the game actually being any good, but I remember that was impressive, and that game sold well because there wasn't much on the console. But I do remember the Quidditch one being big, and that's all I was thinking was like, does anybody want to play this when they could probably play the original? But anyway, what else? My next notes. Next note was for single developer. Neat idea, not for me. That was like the one that looked like VR. That was from the guy that made
Cuffbusters.
Yeah.
Cuffbusters. Choo Choo Charles. This is a dev. He doesn't know how to actually code. He does visual language.
Like, it looked like dev. It looks like a real fun experience. This is gonna be.
You're gonna see a lot of streamers play this.
I got kind of dizzy watching the footage. It was not because the video was bad. It looks a little nauseating, but that could still be fun. My next
Star Wars Outlaws got teased for Monday.
I wrote down Star Wars Outlaws teaser, aka $100,000.
Watch Monday.
$100,000 commercial for Monday. Then my next note was Civ 7. My brother is going to be super happy, and it turns out he was very happy.
Before that, Neva. This is the Greece devs.
Yes. I missed that one because I got up to grab food and went to the washroom, and then he came back and was told, hey, you missed a cool game. So, yes.
Neva looks just as cool as Gris.
Yes, that's
day one buy.
Is that that's not the deer one? That's another one.
No, that's a different one. This is Girl and Fox.
This is Girl and Fox. Looks really sad, but good. As I did end
Civ
up going
7, but yeah, back to Civ 7.
Yeah, Civ 7.
Yeah.
We got about halfway through the trailer, and my friends here, my brother, were like, "Oh, it's going to be." They're like, "Oh, is it going to be a new Age of Empires?" I'm like, "That would be at the Microsoft." And I just told my brother, I'm like, "I think I know what it is, and you're going to be happy." And he basically popped off when he saw it. He's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "My computer's going to melt." And I'm like, "It's not going to melt." He's got a 4090 and like a Threadripper in his thing for work. And he's like, "It's gonna melt," and I said, "No, it's not." And then he looks at me, he's like, "It's gonna melt.
It's gonna melt."
He goes, "It's coming out next." I said, "What?" He goes, he has a third gen Threadripper, so he's like, I guess 1 generation behind or 2 generations behind. He's like, I'm gonna have to spend like $1,000 on a new CPU, and I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Civ." I didn't realize that Civ is not graphics dependent. It's extremely multi-threaded.
It is CPU dependent.
Yeah. So
almost all of Firaxis's games are CPU dependent.
Yeah, so he's like, there's an excuse. He's like, there's an excuse for me to tell work I need an upgrade, so he could like get some discount on it or get some money back. But he's like, he goes, my 4090 is gonna like sit there doing almost nothing except for if I turn on like if they end up having like path tracing,
ray tracing.
He goes, if you put on path or ray tracing on that game, because he's got one of them ultra wides at 4K ultra wide, he's like, it's just gonna like start a fire in my home. Because he goes, it's as taxing as running like CAD software simulation stuff. So I was like, oh,
yeah.
But he's like super happy with it. And then we were all surprised, and the three of us that were here watching all said at the exact same time, "I thought Sid Meier was dead." And it turns out Sid Meier is not dead. Sid Meier's still working on the series.
He's still running the studio.
I'm sorry, Sid. You know, I didn't mean to be rude. I didn't mean to say you were dead before you were dead, but I thought this was like a Tom Clancy situation where his name was part of like a trust or something, and they used it on the things. But no, he's still working on it. So you know it's going to be detailed and good. And you know, they only come up with these every like 6 to 7 years now or more before they come up with a new Civ. So
yep. Like they support and they support Civ for years.
Yeah, generally, like when Civ 4, I remember Civ 4 was like, I feel when it hit mainstream. Because I know that like Civ had been out, there are other ones, but like, it's funny that Civ became popular.
Civ 4 was the first to hit consoles,
yeah.
And then Civ 5 really blew up.
Yeah, and I think
because it actually played well on consoles.
And they supported 5 like a couple years into 6's reign, like they still were coming out with content expansions.
Yeah.
And because they knew that it's known to be, it's the PC pusher, but not for graphics, right? It's the one that pushes CPU tech as well as just like, I feel the only way they're going to be able to offload, and they might not do it, to offload some of the stress is because so much time has passed, they may be able to rely on some cloud stuff for some of the calculations. It's going to piss people off that it has to be always online, but Civ has kind of always been an online game since like Civ 3 or 4. So, like where there was always some features at least for that. So we'll see where it goes. That's a next year release. So it was just a reveal of the motif for it, but
they're doing full gameplay later this year.
Yeah, that will be probably a Gamescom thing. That Civ is not like, it's not something that's going to show up at TGS. It's also not something that shows up at like, it's not going to be a game that shows up at Comic-Con or something. That's good, but it is. Civ is like insanely popular in Europe and here, where like Europe, especially where like strategy games never really went away. And when like, it's funny how when most of North America didn't stop caring, but like when the mainstream stopped caring about RTS and strategy games right around the rise of MMOs, like early 2000s, it's funny that Civ didn't get dragged down with it. It's like everybody left, and then they all went. Anybody who wanted to stay stayed with Civ, and Civ was elevated. But yeah, so that's cool. The next note I have, and I don't know if it's directly after it, was Blumhouse Games is essentially not just publishing a single game; they've become a publisher.
Yeah, that there's a bunch of stuff. That you don't have here. Black Myth Wukong gets a new trailer. Again, Chinese game, so who the hell knows how it plays actually?
Yeah.
Sparking
Zero was
Warhammer
shown.
Space Warhammer does another trailer. All right. Metaphor Refantasio does a tease for because Atlas is doing their own summer showcase thing next week. And they're going to show more of Refantasio there. They're just showing off some of the monster/job things that they're doing. There's 40 of them in the game, which is insane.
Yeah, I actually kind of zoned out because I didn't think they were going to show anything that we hadn't seen in that last 1 hour showcase thing.
Yeah, there's just a new showcase coming later next week. The Batman VR game.
Our comments were, what a waste.
Yeah,
nobody's going to play it, unfortunately.
Street Fighter 6 announced their season 2 characters.
Yeah, this was a hot topic in the apartment here because I questioned out loud. I was like, I said, when was the last time that Capcom had SNK characters in their stuff? And my buddy goes, never. They've only ever lent their characters out. They've never, or they've done like a crossover game. They've never done a thing where they allowed other franchises' characters into an actual Capcom game.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Cool that Terry is showing up in like literally everything, and everyone knew M. Bison was going to be in season 2.
Yeah. The surprise was Terry. You're like, oh, that's cool. And then they got Mai because it's like, okay, if you're going to like fighting,
if you're going to bring in one of these SNK characters, and then also Terry. Have some female rep, it's going to be Terry and Mai.
Yeah, like you look at people that love fighting games, obviously know the franchises. They know everything. They're all being like, oh my god, it's amazing. If you're a casual arcade fan that's over like 25 years old, if anything, you'll know those two. Out of all of SNK's entire, you'll know those two if you're not going to get the main dude. I can forget his name from Samurai Showdown. Like there's basically 3 characters that everybody that is a casual fighting fan knows, and it's them. Terry is the number 1, and then Mai because boobs. That's really the only reason.
Yeah.
And then the fact that they put him there, it also is raising questions. You know, the very next question was, does this mean that we're going to start seeing Capcom characters in SNK stuff?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Sparking Zero got a release date, October.
Yep. And again, like I didn't really pay too much attention to it because I know I won't be covering it. that will be a Birdman either covers it or gets it for himself. When is it coming out? It says
October.
It's gonna be. I'll bet you Mike's gonna ask his family for that for his birthday if he doesn't get it for review.
Yeah.
And he'll play it for the next 10 years straight. So
yeah, the one thing that showed up that was kind of just like whatever, but Black Delta Force Hawk Ops has a single player campaign called Black Hawk Down, and yes, that is directly inspired by the film.
When they open, I've only seen like maybe the movie once. I think it was on TV like a year after it came out in like 02 or 03. And I'm watching it and I went, that sequence, I'm like, that's just the sequence from the trailer. They just like recreated half of the trailer in the game. Yeah. I was like, oh, they're literally doing scene for scene what happened in a 4-year-old game or 24-year-old movie.
Yeah. But going back to Blumhouse now, Blumhouse is doing some game publishing. Cool.
Yeah, they want to be the Devolver for horror indie games.
That's fine.
Essentially what I got. They basically, they're not owning individual studios, so they're not they're a publisher, but they're not going to be a having exclusive ownership of any developers. They're doing. I thought, oh, maybe they'll be like a Raw Fury. They're being more like Devolver. They're going to develop relationships with individual smaller dev studios, and the idea will be, hey, it looked like they were culling through itch and through like demos and stuff that people were producing, and then they were offering funding to publish them and get them made. And then
the only other comment I want to say about it is the head of the initiative. She was not a media trained person.
No, she was not. But what made it best is anytime you've got like a Scottish accent or something, even when you're nervous, it came across as endearing. You could tell she is very comfortable talking with the developers. She is not very comfortable in front of like 5,000 people. So, whereas, Jason Blum comes out. Jason Blum comes out and he's like, hey, he's talking the way he would talk at like CinemaCon to hype up his stuff. Yeah. He's like, the dude's not like a billionaire for no reason, right? So, but you can also see that it's not just all talk. He looks like he has a passion for it. This is not going to be just a cash grab. It looks like he saw that there was a gap in what was being produced. Like, you have your Devolvers and your Raw Furies and I'm trying to think if there's a third company like that does the indie, quirky, gory, hyper violent, like video games, if that makes sense. And then there's a lot of high budget, extremely expensive horror games that mostly either don't hit or the ones that do make their money. But we've seen, like, how many horror space cosmic stuff have we seen in the last 4 or 5 years? Tons. He probably saw a shit ton of that and went, wait a minute, there's a lot of he's taking his approach to dirt cheap budget stuff but very creative things and just letting it go. Some people will argue that a lot of the movies they release, it's hit or miss. I'd say 50% of the Blumhouse movies, especially if they're the ones that are produced for streaming platforms, they're just content mills. But then the other 50% are very creative things. So
yeah, it's like, because they're so low budget, no matter what, even if they're trash, they make their money back.
Exactly. These will make their money. These will help support small dev teams. Like, they will not have to worry about being shut down by a corporate owner, because they're not going to be corporately owned. They're just going to be corporately sponsored versus and then there's going to be obviously a revenue share, and it looks like Blumhouse is viewing this as these are opportunities for two things. One, for these small indie developers that have these cool, creepy games of all different types of horror to create games that then they can, like, they won't own the games maybe outright, but they will then have the exclusive rights to adapt to other media. Yeah. Like for not just first look, but like there's that. And then the other is getting acclaimed indie directors. Like, they've got, I forget the first person, but they got Brandon Cronenberg on board to make a game based on either the movies that they make. So they have a platform to make games based on movies they've already made. And then they have a platform to take new games that they can turn into movies that they can produce. So he's basically found a way to make a two-way content stream.
Yep.
So good for them. That's a cool announcement. That was probably one of the surprises there, was that it was not just one game. It was 6 games. First one's coming in the fall. I'm predicting, based on the most of the budgets on their stuff, it sounds like they're going to be releasing a game every 2 months.
Yeah, something like that.
And that'll be sort of in line with, isn't that kind of how they release most of their movies?
Yep.
Pretty much once every 2 months?
Yep.
Not including all the stuff that they do for Hulu and streaming and all that sort of stuff. But as far as, like, it sounds like he's following a theatrical run of how they produce their stuff, so that everything is spread out. Everything has time, enough time that they can market them. And yeah, I think some of those games actually look pretty cool. I'm not talking about them individually just because we got mostly teases. We didn't get a ton of and they're going to show more throughout the year. The Blumhouse stuff is the kind of stuff that you might end up seeing at Comic-Cons and that showing off, or at weirdly, like some of these games that are coming out in the next year, don't be surprised if in 2026 you end up seeing, information at CinemaCon of them being adapted into movies, and they'll be adapted
Yeah.
real quick too. That's the big difference, right? Because they're all so low budget.
Yeah.
Like he could have a game that comes out that they spent 50 grand helping develop, or maybe 100 grand helping develop, and then it becomes a hit, and like 7 months later they got a movie in theaters.
Yeah.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, that's one of the last notes I put down here, was looks freaking good, except for the terrible, terrible cartoon animation.
Yeah, I mean, it's Power Rangers beat 'em up.
Yeah, like
Cool.
if you take the cutscenes away, and it looks really good, and it really turns on its head partway through, where it goes into like mode 7 graphics.
Yeah.
We'll be definitely playing it. Like, think about this: who would have thought? And there's no date, so it's probably not coming this year. It could be if they announce it at Gamescom or something. But who would have thought that we would be getting, likely in the same year, a Power Rangers beat 'em up, like a 5-player one, like Shredder's Revenge, from the same team that did. No, it's not the same team that did Shredder's. It's the same team that has done. Did they do the Cowabunga collection? I think.
Yes. Yes.
So they didn't say it on there, but it is Atari or Atari owned Digital Eclipse doing it. They probably just didn't want the Atari name on it. But
yep.
Yeah, at least not for the next couple of years, till more people start realizing that Digital Eclipse and Night Dive are just Atari now. But yeah, it looks cool. It looks like 5-player. I kind of get the feeling that we're gonna it's gonna be 6-player. Like they're not gonna make it so you can't play as all 6 Rangers at once. But that'll be revealed, later on. So that looks cool. We'll see about that. Deer and Boy looks like I'm gonna freaking cry the whole goddamn time I play it.
Yeah.
Like that was the last note I made in my notebook before I stopped really super paying attention. Was Deer and Boy looks good, and then below that, I'm just gonna cry, underlined.
Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 gets another trailer. That's coming out later this year anyway. Whatever.
Slitterhead, I laughed so hard when I went, oh my god, it's Mind Jack 2.
Yeah, kinda. I mean, this is from the same. This is from Kenshiro Toyama, who is the creator of Silent Hill. Yeah, this is his new game.
It's Mind Jack, but instead you're a parasite.
Yep.
It's Mind Jack. What was that game? Prototype.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll see more later. People are like, it looks janky. I don't. I think it looked like the right kind of jank.
Yeah.
Like
it's from the creator of Silent Hill. Silent Hill has jank.
Yeah, and not the kind of jank that we're seeing in the new Silent Hill remake that looks new Silent Hill.
Just bad.
I was like, I'm not a big fan of survival horror, but I looked at it and I'm like, I looked at it and I went, why does this look like Kmart? Like, it doesn't look like, it looks like off-brand, and yet this is.
It looks like off-brand Resident Evil is what it does.
And I was like, how are the facial animations looking like 1999 on this? Yet it's
That's
supposed to be
Bloober
now.
Team for you.
It's like, for a long time, because I wasn't in on every studio understanding, I didn't know that Bloober Team and Blue Point were different people. And I very quickly found out that one is much better than the other.
Yeah.
one is so much better than the other.
Yeah. So next up was Killer Bean, which is a single dev.
I went up to grab a little more salad from the kitchen, and I was told, run back quickly. You have to look at this. And I came back, and we didn't know it was beans, but that my brother yells out, it's a Mr. Potato Head game. And, and then I was like, no. I was like, what? And I came out here, and I came in halfway through the trailer. And when I came in was when he's jumping in the back of a car, and I said, it's Mr. Potato Head with a butt crack. And and I almost dropped my food. I was laughing. And then we're like, no, is it a coffee bean? And at the end, I said, oh my God, could you imagine? It wasn't, but I said, could you imagine if it was like Maxwell House or Nabob, the coffee company that was sponsoring the game or something? And like back in the day when you'd have stupid stuff like McDonald's, like because before it ended, like when brother said it was, it's a Mr. Potato Head, and then my other friend was here. He goes, I don't know, he kind of looks like a McNugget, and I was like, oh my God, is it a McDonald's game? Is this like sneaking but a million times better? But no, it's a bean, killer bean, and it's made by somebody who worked on the Matrix movies.
Yeah.
And it has like it takes all of the like the Matrixy type stuff. It's a little bit Matrix, a little bit GTA, like classic GTA, not classic like the 2D, but like PS2 era GTA mixed with what's it Max Payne, and
Yeah.
and then also some of the stuff that was happening in it looked like it was ripped off of that movie Wanted, that terrible movie.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're like shooting bullets around corners. You can make the bullet curve, that sort of stuff. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Early access. I don't know if it's going to be on consoles. I don't know if they said that or not.
If it'll come into early access on consoles, it'll be like on Xbox or something.
Yeah.
Like Microsoft,
probably.
they'll pay money for it. Just gonna skip carrying because it was like generic mountain climbing game.
Yeah, there's a few of those.
Super ultra detailed. Wander Stop. Now this was definitely on my radar, specifically because it is from Davey Worden, the creator of Stanley Parable and Beginner's Guide.
Okay.
It is about a fighter that has like PTSD, and they go and run a tea shop.
Okay, so that and Unknown 9 I skipped because I just wasn't paying attention because Unknown 9's already been announced.
Yeah, Unknown 9 was just I think they announced that it's fall this year.
It already had a fall release.
I wasn't unsure.
It wasn't
that.
official, but like Amazon Canada already have pre-orders for it for the fall.
Okay.
I think it was a placeholder date, but it was like October or something, and it probably has changed now. But the only thing about that is I had to explain that they're like, how Bandai's making that? I said, no, they started their own indie initiative, sort of like EA Originals. And it's like European made, but specifically like they're doing it not just for our market. It's like something a little different. It's like, hey, here are some Western developed games that we think will sell well in Asia. And so it hopefully does okay. It's not a full price game. At least in Canada, I think it's listed at $69 when regular games are $90 now. So that's good.
Monster Hunter Stories got a little tease that's coming out later this month.
I skipped Enotria last song. I skipped it completely.
Yeah, I don't care.
First Descendant. It's not the first time we've seen that. That's been shown a bunch of times.
Yeah. Inner Sloth has a game fund for indie games, and they've funded a bunch of stuff.
Called Outer Sloth for things that they're not making themselves.
Yep. Cool.
I think the cool thing from that was Project Dosa, which is from the same people that put together Thirsty Suitors last year. And it's a similar idea. It looks like it has like some RPG elements, except you're riding around in a giant mech.
Yep.
Among Us.
Tease the Among Us.
Yeah.
Yep. That has like a star-studded ass cast.
Basically, everybody that you could have really wanted to have from like anybody who's a good voice actor from the last 25 years of like Nickelodeon shows is on there.
Yeah.
Sonic Shadow X Generations.
that's going to be Peacock exclusive.
Yes. Yeah. There'll be a reason for kids to actually watch on that.
Or no, it's not Peacock, Paramount.
Oh, Paramount. Yeah. Well, for now, until Paramount
For
decides
now.
to merge. Until they decide
Until
to
they
merge
merge.
with
Until they
either,
rumor merge.
with either
Yeah.
Peacock or another service. Sonic X Shadow Generations.
I mean, yeah.
Or Sonic Cross,
Whatever.
I guess. Yeah. It's Sonic Generations, but with new levels and maybe some better collision detection. Maybe.
Yeah.
Cool.
Whatever.
Dune Awakening, I didn't pay attention.
It is a survival MMO, and they basically just explain the premise. The premise is that you are, you're going to be playing the Paul role.
Okay, cool.
Like your character is like an alternate universe version of Paul.
I think Battle Aces had the most awkward showcase.
I think
was that the
it
one?
did, but it's done by. It's an animated trailer. It's done by one of the developers that left the Dead Cell studio.
Okay, and was this the one where the guy was on stage and he was like the really nerdy dude, where nobody was interested in the game?
No,
That's not what it
think
was.
So.
That might be a little later. Whatever was the mobile game that nobody liked. There's 2 mobile games that nobody liked actually, but yeah. The final season 3, I'm not interested, and also wasn't the one that was ripping off voice actors by using their voices in AI.
Yep.
So fuck them. So we'll skip that. Alan Wake 2.
Alan Wake 2.
Big surprise.
Physical release coming.
Yeah, and big surprise from the show is no Kojima at all.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes,
Alan Wake 2 is the Alan Wake 2 DLC is out today.
yeah. They say so. All 3 are at the same time. This is apparently separate from. It's not going to count towards. There's other DLC that they hadn't announced previously, I believe, as part of their expansion. So it's Twilight Zone basically within their world, where Anthology you play as what is it? Is she from?
It's 3 different characters, and it's basically exploring what if scenarios.
2 of which are from Alan
Twilight
Wake,
Zone.
and then one is. Oh no! Wait. Yeah. 2. Wait.
At least one of them's from Alan Wake 1.
Yeah, the waitress, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if Ashmore was in Alan Wake, and I realized no, that's from the is that from Quantum Break?
Possibly.
Because I think that was
again, we're now
Sean Ashmore. So
yeah, now we're yes, it is, but it isn't his character from Quantum Break.
Okay, it looked like it was.
It's legally distinct.
It looks like what they're doing is it's Sean
character.
playing Sean as
Yes.
the actor of that character from the game.
Yes.
So we're looking at a game version of the real version who was then playing the version, and then he gets embroiled in the game becoming real.
Yes.
and then
Yes.
and then
Welcome to the Remedyverse, where
Yes.
everything is fucking confusing.
He said it was going to go out there more than they even usually are. So that's where, and then of course there's one that's based that's connecting it a little more with Control, which we already had if you played Control's expansion, where you realize that one of the outbreak events was what happened with Alan Wake 1. So it already was sort of connected.
New World is basically saying fuck it to the MMO and making a full single player mode and co-op and coming to consoles.
Yeah. And it hopefully won't fry your video card this time. Honkai, skip.
Honkai, ignore.
Dark and Darker just looks like Heroes of Might and Magic.
It's finally back. It's finally back on Steam and Epic.
Yeah. What else?
Path of the Goddess.
Path of the Goddess, which looks nothing like the trailers they showed previously, which is weird. I didn't even know it was the same game.
Oh, the last time they showed Path of the Goddess, I think it was during Game Awards. They showed that it was battled Tower defense.
Okay, I didn't realize. Like, sure, Hyperlight Breaker, which now this was it's interesting. Weren't there two Hyperlight games that they showed? I think one here and one at Day of the Devs.
No, they announced later in SGF they announced a second game that they've been working on. Hyperlight Breaker has been in development hell because they are published by Gearbox.
Oh,
that's why Hyperlight Breaker hasn't been released yet. And then they also retooled how their entire game worked midway through development.
Okay, so that's,
if you want to learn about all the stuff that's going on with that game, check out No Clips documentary series that they're doing. Very, very informative and whatnot.
Okay. Party Animals.
Getting some new modes.
Yeah, it's a fun game. It
Mario
really is.
Mario Kart, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much more to say. Like usually, I'm indifferent, but it is actually a fun game. So,
yeah.
Skate had the most Devolver style trailer ever.
Yeah.
They made a whole fake company with the actor that's in all the stupid Reels memes where he's like, I didn't do fucking shit, that guy.
Yeah.
Where they're working at some insurance company, and it turns out like the insurance company owned the town and then they went bankrupt. So now that's the explanation as to why Skate is just an open town with nobody in it that you can skate in.
Yeah.
Cool. It was kind of funny,
yeah.
though. It's like they spent so much money to tell you that, hey, we're still working on it and it's going to be late. But by the way, I think it was like open
We've
play
got
testing.
a beta for consoles later this year.
Pal World. Yay.
Pal World gets their expansion. They're talking about their expansion. That's coming out later this month.
Valorant. Oof.
On consoles.
Yeah.
That's literally it. And hey, you can play Valorant if you want to. I don't think you want to, but you can play Valorant without installing spyware.
I'm not a fan of a game that would cost you the cost of an entire house if you wanted to buy all the DLC.
Yeah.
Wilds had Monster Hunter Wilds had a larger little segment. I think they're
going to be showing more later.
Yeah, it's didn't they say more at Gamescom or something? I think.
Yep, they're going to.
They're doing a world tour with it, which great. I think at this point they don't need to show more because everybody that wants to play it has already seen it. And they're like, I don't need to know more.
Yeah. And then they ended with Phantom Blade Zero, which is a Chinese game, so who the fuck knows how it plays?
Yeah, people were asking to see that at Sony, and the fact that it wasn't there and here, and it's also telling they haven't shown proper gameplay, but then they're doing a tour where every single major event they're doing behind closed doors plays at SGF right now. They're doing
a Chinese thing.
The Shanghai
TGS
one,
and Gamescom.
TGS and Gamescom, every single one of them is behind closed doors for press. So it's like the fact that you're still not showing it means that there is something. It's either bad and you want to completely create and curve the narrative to your liking from the press by only getting them certain vertical slices, or two, it is really good, but there's a weird trick to it that isn't how the regular public would get it, and they need somebody to feel it before they can explain it properly. That's happened before. Yeah. Like, for instance, like an Okami or something would not have necessarily played great to audiences had press not played it and been like, here's why it's great. Because, looking at a trailer, you wouldn't necessarily know it's great. So, yeah, it was kind of like they closed the show with kind of a fart. It was kind of like, meh. There was no, like, one more thing, a Chinese game that most people really don't care about. Like, really, they don't. But yay! And then it went into Day of the Devs, which had more of an indie focus on this whole show. I thought the show was going to be 3 hours and then a short Day of the Devs, but no, it was 2 hours. Day of the Devs. We'll sort of briefly, just quickly go by this because pretty soon, we're gonna have to start watching more showcases.
Yep.
Simpler Times was shown. That's the best way I could put it. Battle Vision Network looked like a little puzzler battler game. That looks kind of cool. There was more on Cairn. I made a note in the trailer collection that I put up is Pedal Runner, which is like a pink Pokemon game. It looks like a cool Pokemon game. Best way to put it. Watch the trailer. Karma the Dark World horror, didn't pay attention. Highlight of Day of the Devs for me was UFO 50, which I think has been in development like a bazillion years. Like before I was with Twig, I think they announced it in like 2014, 2015 maybe. Like wasn't this like announced like 8 years ago or something?
No clue.
But it's the coolest idea. So you have it's 50 games, not 50 mini games, 50 brand new games from multiple different developers. And the idea is there's an overarching story. The story is you uncover a 1980s console with all the games in like an attic or something. And when you play it, it's as if you were uncovering like it's like what if you didn't know the TurboGrafx ever existed and you found a box with TurboGrafx games. So you're playing the games and they all have certain restrictions that they placed on them where they can only work within a certain color palette. They purposely made it so that the fake games that came out later in the game's console's life cycle have better graphics and more features, a la the way that the original NES worked with mapper chips and things. And they even do things like multiple sequels and side stories with similar characters or same characters that you see the progression of, a la like Mario 1 to Mario 3. It's coming out on PC in September. Hopefully it goes to consoles. Looks pretty freaking cool. Cozy Grove is a farming sequel farming game type thing.
Yep.
Koira, I think, was that the one that was Don't Nod, I think, or something? Or Studio Tolima, but I think it's published by them.
Studio Tolima, yeah.
Cool. Arranger, we've already heard about and shown. That's the one that's like you're moving a puzzle piece around to move around on the map.
And that's out in July anyway.
Out in July, and I think it was announced it's also coming to like Netflix because you can easily play it with just a TV remote.
Yep.
Fear the Spotlight. Screenbound, we already talked about before. Zoocosis. It was the creepy zoo game. Sure. Tom the Post Girl, I didn't pay attention to that. Psychorama was already shown before, but they went into more detail. That was shown it was the Indie Showcase. I don't know if it was this year. I think it was last year's Indie Showcase showed off like teases from that. Building relationships. Building relationships. You're a house going on dates with other buildings.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. A Little to the Left, Seeing Stars. So there's a new A Little to the Left game. Cool. Hello Again. I didn't see that one. Is it Animal Crossing? It said Groundhog's Day meets Animal Crossing. Okay, you're in a time loop. While Waiting is another sort of slow cozy game. Afterlove EP. Phoenix Springs. What else was there? Ties of Tomorrow. Looks weird.
It was the last one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then very quickly, we'll just say, like, for Devolver, they did their usual ridiculous. We'll probably have a discussion with Birdman on that, just on the whole production of it, because there's a lot of little Easter eggs that are great. But know that they put on another one of their weird shows, a little more tight this time, a little more like those late night Adult Swim fake infomercial type things.
Yeah.
And of the things they showed off, there were only a couple games that were new. I think only one game was new. The one that was the beat 'em up game, right?
Well, actually, the big one that they announced was, hey, Heart Machine has a new game that's coming out this year. What?
Yeah. So I mean, I think I only put one trailer in specifically in our collection, but I mean, it was fine. Overall,
I mean, for me, I really liked a lot of the games that were shown off. Tenjutsu looks freaking cool. I mean,
yes.
you got the 90s 80s anime aesthetic with
That's
like
the
the
one,
animation and
I
stuff.
believe that's the one
And
I
then
included
the
the
game
trailer
it's
for.
yeah, and then the game is pixel art. Possessors is Heart Machine's new single player game that's out
Right, that's
later
the other
this
one that
year.
was good.
Just
Yeah, and the other
like
stuff I think was already
whoa.
announced last year and shown last year.
Yeah, Crush House, Angerfoot. Angerfoot is coming out in a couple weeks. That'll be out in July. Talos
Oh,
Principle is getting an expansion. Talos Principle 2 has an
yeah.
expansion coming out.
That the funniest thing is how they have Talos Principle, like the most serious puzzle. Like that's the one game they have that has like legit regular mainstream prestige with like even like
Yeah,
teachers and parents. It's like this is a game that can teach you things, and it's like who's publishing it? Devolver.
yeah.
So they
Uh,
scooped that. I will mention one thing very quickly. At the end, they say like go to their website for the goodies. Nothing there. If you go to the Devolver Direct website and you click the little Volvi birthday symbol thing that was on the page, it brings you to Itch, and they made a free game for everybody that is just a Tamagotchi of Volvi from the 90s. And I will read it to you because I downloaded it. It's available for Windows, like a 1 megabyte or 4 megabytes or something.
yeah,
Um, it was so funny. There's also a version for Linux. So I'm going to click on his birthday. When you click on him, he turns backwards and shows his bum. And it's Volvi Virtual ePet, and it's just a Tamagotchi. And the best part is they even included a picture of a fake prop they made by buying one of those like $3 Wish.com Tamagotchis and then rebranding it and putting it in their own thing. And there's all these comments on it. You can download it. It's 26 megabytes, sorry. But here's the description. In 1996, Devolver Digital released Pocket Volvi, a virtual pet starring its beloved big-handed mascot. But a fatal software error meant that Volvi would not stop crapping and would eventually die from the relentless buildup of his own stinking effluence. At great expense, every Volvi was recalled and destroyed. But earlier this year, elite net servers discovered the software hidden deep in the dark web and has now been emulated for your pleasure. This is the first time since 1996 that Pocket Volvi, the long thought lost, has been playable. How can you keep Volvi alive? 5 minutes, an hour? Set a world record? Enjoy. When you download it and open it, it's just a simple game made in Godot. You can't maximize it. It takes up like a tenth of your screen. It's basically it takes up the exact size of an actual Tamagotchi on your screen, like 1-to-1 ratio.
yeah.
It's 3 buttons on it, and when one button just like makes him like tip his hat or move his hands, another button does like nothing, and the third button is just when he goes uh-oh and then shits his pants, and you got to clean it up. And if you let it sit long enough, he just gets sadder and sadder and then dies, just like the knockoff Tamagotchis, like the virtual pets. And I was like, man, you know what? This is good. This is what I come for.
Yeah. Also, the last thing that Devolver announced, Cult of the Lamb is getting a co-op
Right.
expansion.
Yes, like a local co-op expansion.
And also, don't worry, there's other stuff added that's for solo players as well.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. And they basically quality of life and some extra stuff. It's cool. So there wasn't a whole lot from them. This was interesting. There was a lot of indie stuff this year, which is great because it's really helping a lot of people that are either laid off or want to get into the industry. There really wasn't a lot of big things. Like by far the biggest announcement outside of the Blumhouse just entering the business was the Lego game.
Lego and Alan Wake.
Lego, yeah, it was Lego, Alan Wake, and Blumhouse were the three big. And I guess for us, not for everybody else, but for us would be Power Rangers.
Yeah.
For any basically the '90s kids, it was the fact that there's a Mighty Morphin game that looks really freaking good. So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. Like we'll take some highlights out of it. Obviously, watch the trailers that we put in. If there's anything else that we mentioned that we didn't like that you like, feel free to check it out and watch it. It's just we saved you a 4-hour stream basically. But yeah, so I guess we're gonna get out of here. We'll come back and discuss what's going to be the long 5 showcases today, I think, at least. We've got
yeah, I think so.
we've got the Wholesome Direct, the I think is it Women Led Games or Black and the Black Led Games. I think that's what it's called. They change the names of those two every once in a while.
Yeah. So Wholesome, Latin America, Future Games, and
Future
Play.
Gaming, Future Play. That is the
There's
creators.
Future of Play, Future Game Show, Wholesome Direct, Latin America Game Showcase, and something else. I think
it's either the women led or the one that's for the Black and people of color.
I think it's women led.
Okay, because they sometimes flip around when they have those ones on, but yeah. So there's all those. There's going to be a lot of overlap likely, but we'll wind up watching them, and there might be some new trailers and new stuff. I assume they've been actually pretty good so far this year of spreading things out, considering how many indie focused things there've been. There's just a lot of cool stuff coming out. So yeah, we'll be back, I guess, probably tomorrow when you hear this with coverage of that, because then the last of the, I would say, big shows, unless Nintendo comes out with something, will be this Sunday with the Microsoft and I guess the PC. We still haven't heard anything from Nintendo. I'm going to assume, if we don't hear anything from them, we'll do the Ubisoft and we'll watch whatever IGN has for EA on Tuesday, sometime midweek. At the latest, it'll be later in the week if Nintendo ends up coming out with something. We'll cover all that in sort of one block, and then we'll do our big roundtable discussion. Because so far, it's been a kind of mid. There's a lot of cool stuff. There just hasn't been anything mind-blowing.
Yeah, there's no, big mic drop stuff.
Yeah, not yet. We'll see. And not that we're hoping for it, just that it's a little surprising. Usually there's at least one or two. So I think it kind of has to be Microsoft right now. And we'll see about that. But yeah, thanks for, sticking around, chilling with us, listening with us. I guess for This Week in Geek, we have been
Ken from This Anime.
And Alex, the producer, saying, pray for us with our long weekend of watching a lot of really cool indie stuff. And I guess we'll be back with plenty more coverage right here at ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.